When I saw her walking across the restaurant, I forgot how to breathe. The heels, the confidence, the way she smiled like the world still belonged to her. It all hit me at once. 12 years vanished in a heartbeat, and I was just the guy she left behind. But when the hostess said her name, I realized my blind date wasn't a stranger. It was her. The hostess said his name with a professional smile. "Mr. Carter?" And Ethan answered before he felt ready, rising from the edge of a chair that looked too sleek for a man in a thrift store jacket. The restaurant glowed like a well-kept secret. Soft amber lamps, the quiet clink of glass, waiters moving in choreographed lines that made him think of ballroom steps he never learned. He checked his phone one more time. A text from Lily, sent from her phone but in Noah's spelling. "Don't worry, Daddy. I'll wait up for you." He breathed out, half a laugh, half a prayer, and slid the phone back into his pocket as if he could put his nerves away with it. "This seat is perfect," the hostess said, guiding him to a table that reflected the candlelight like still water. "Your guest will be here shortly." "My guest," he repeated, trying out the words. Lily's voice had been firm on the phone that morning. "You deserve to smile at someone who isn't your 6-year-old, Ethan." And he had surrendered, not because he believed in blind dates, but because he believed in Lily's stubborn faith that he still had a future. He smoothed the sleeve of the jacket, felt the faint fray at the seam, and wondered if the maitre d' could see the way grief rewrites posture, how it makes a man sit like he is protecting something breakable inside. A waiter appeared with water, the polite grace of someone trained to make luxury feel normal. "Can I start you with anything besides still water, sir?" "Give me a minute," Ethan said, then caught himself and softened his tone. "Thank you. I will, take a look." He tried not to stare at the room, and yet took everything in. The low hum of conversation, the white linen folded like careful promises, the way couples leaned toward each other and made the world smaller between them. He used to know that body language. He used to be fluent in it. Now he felt like a tourist who only remembered the words for yes and please. His phone buzzed again. A photo from Lily. Noah on the couch in his dinosaur pajamas. Thumbs up, a grin with one front tooth still loose. "We made mac and cheese. Chef says hi." Ethan smiled despite himself and typed, "Be good. In bed by 9. 3 dots. 9:05. He rolled his eyes, then added a small heart, and put the phone away for real this time. "First time here?" the waiter asked when he came back. "Is it that obvious?" "Only because you're reading the room like a menu." The man's smile was quick and kind. "Take your time." Ethan nodded, grateful for the small mercy of humor, and let his shoulders drop. The truth was he felt like a mechanic inside a jewelry store. Hands that knew bolts and gaskets more than stemware, a mind that measured problems in torque rather than tasting notes. He had promised himself he would try, though. He would sit through the awkward start and the careful questions. He would not talk about Emily unless asked. He would not compare this evening to a life already lived and lost. He noticed the door only because the sound changed, the soft rhythm of heels on marble, sure and unhurried, like someone who had never been told no. He did not look up at first. He told himself not to. He traced the edge of the napkin with his thumb and counted slowly, 1 breath, 2, 3, until the hostess' voice floated over his shoulder. "Your date has arrived, Mr. Carter." He stood because that is what you do, because manners survive even when certainty does not. And then he looked, and the world narrowed to a single line of sight. She was moving toward him through the gold haze of the room, her posture easy, her smile composed. And in that instant his memory outran the present, not to escape into the past, but to anchor it. Summer grass under an oak tree, a bicycle chain slipped loose, a girl laughing with wind-tangled hair and sun in her eyes. "Ethan," she said, and his name sounded different in her voice, as if it belonged to a younger, braver version of him. "Olivia," he managed, the word careful and steady even while his heart startled like a bird in a quiet room. "Wow, it's been a lifetime." "It really has," she said, and for a second something unguarded crossed her face. Recognition, yes, but also the ache of time. She extended her hand. He took it. Her grip was cool and certain. The diamond at her wrist caught the light, not flaunting, just factual, like a headline everyone already knew. They sat. The candle flickered between them. The menu gave him something to look at while he learned how to breathe again. "I didn't know it was you," she said, a small laugh escaping. the kind people use to soften truth. The agency only sent a first name and a time. Same, he said. Fate, or Lily's talent for chaos. Your sister set this up? She did, Ethan answered, then added, because honesty had always been the only language he spoke well. I was going to cancel. She talked me out of it. I'm glad she did, Olivia said, and the words landed gently, without pressure, like a door opened but not yet crossed. The waiter returned, and they ordered in the careful cadence of strangers learning each other's pace. When he left, silence hovered, not empty, more like a space being measured for what it could hold. Olivia studied him with the kind attention that once made him feel seen rather than examined. You look different, she said softly. Life does that, he replied, especially to single dads. Her eyes lifted quickly to his. You're a father? Yeah, he said, and warmth steadied his voice. Noah. 6. Smart. Kind. He keeps me honest. That's beautiful, she said, and he heard no pity there, only recognition, as if she remembered the boy who planned futures under a tree and believed in promises like they were maps. Ethan let the moment sit, simple and complete. He did not rush it, did not reach for more than it could hold. Across the table, Olivia folded her hands, the polished ease of the room dimming by comparison to the quiet work of two people reintroducing themselves to the truth, that some names never stopped being tender, and some evenings begin before either person knows they've started. When the waiter left them alone again, Ethan tried to remember how conversation was supposed to begin between people who once knew every detail of each other's lives. Olivia's eyes darted around the table, resting on the single candle that glowed between them, the flame bending each time someone passed. He noticed how she sat, upright but not tense, the same posture she had back in debate club when she wanted to sound calm even though she cared too much. So, he said, trying to sound casual, you own this place or just visit the good ones? She smiled, faintly amused. Neither. I try to stay invisible in restaurants. Fewer headlines that way. He blinked. Headlines. Her lips curved with practiced modesty. Bennett Enterprises makes its share of news. People like to attach faces to stories. Of course, he'd seen the name, on billboards, in business articles he never read past the first paragraph. He just never connected it to her. Guess you went further than that scholarship essay under the oak tree. She laughed softly, genuine this time. You still remember that? I remember everything, he said before he could stop himself. Her smile faded slightly, replaced by something gentler. That's both wonderful and dangerous. He looked down, tracing the rim of his glass. Depends which parts you remember. The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was dense, heavy with years unsaid. The restaurant noise faded to a low hum. Olivia leaned back, studying him like a puzzle she wasn't sure she had the right pieces for. You really changed, Ethan. Back then, you were always ready to talk about everything. Now, it's like you measure every word. He met her gaze steadily. You learn to measure things when you've lost enough. Her expression softened, and for a moment, the woman across from him wasn't a billionaire at all, but the girl who once cried because her dog ran away, who swore she'd never love anyone more than she loved the world itself. I didn't know you were a dad, she said finally, her voice small against the restaurant's background music. Yeah, he replied. I wasn't planning on it so soon. But Noah, he's my reason for everything. That's lucky, she whispered. Having something that pure. He shrugged, unsure how to respond. Her gaze drifted past him, unfocused, as though she were looking at a version of her own life she didn't choose. How about you? He asked carefully. Anyone waiting at home? She hesitated just long enough for the pause to mean something. No one, she said. Not anymore. My life is busy. Busy's good, he offered. Sometimes, she murmured. Sometimes it's just another word for lonely. Ethan felt something inside him shift, a memory, a recognition. The same honesty that used to draw him in was still there, buried under polish and success. He wanted to ask 1,000 questions, what happened after she left, how she built her empire, whether she ever thought of him, but he bit them back. Some things, he realized, reveal themselves slowly, if at all. A server refilled their glasses, breaking the moment. Olivia thanked him and looked back at Ethan, her tone lighter. Do you still fix cars? He smiled faintly. Still. Grease under my nails, cracked hands, and all. I used to love watching you work, she said. You'd be completely focused, like the world disappeared. He laughed quietly. The world did disappear. Usually because you were sitting on the hood, blocking my light. Her laugh echoed softly across the table, warm and familiar. I forgot that part. They shared that laugh a little too long, both knowing how easily memory could become a trap. Then her phone vibrated beside her plate. She looked at it, the polished screen glowing with numbers that probably moved markets. She silenced it without reading. Important, he asked. Nothing that can't wait, she said, though her eyes betrayed the weight of an empire waiting for her return. Right now, I'd rather be here. Ethan felt an unexpected calm settle over him. Whatever the years had taken, this fragile, unfinished moment was real. Across from him sat the girl who vanished and the woman who found her way back without meaning to. He exhaled slowly. Well, he said, voice steady now. I guess fate's still got a sense of humor. Olivia tilted her head. Or maybe it's just patient. The candle flickered again, and for the first time in a very long time, Ethan didn't look away. Ethan waited until the plates were half empty, until the small talk about work and weather began to feel like a wall they were both hiding behind. He had been patient, letting her guide the rhythm, but every polite laugh, every pause between words only reminded him that 12 years of silence had filled the space between them. He leaned forward slightly, resting his hands on the table. Olivia, can I ask you something real? Her eyes flicked up, cautious. Of course. Why did you leave? The question came out softer than he'd meant it, but it carried all the weight of those sleepless nights, the unanswered letters, the hollow months that had followed. She didn't answer right away. Her gaze fell to the rim of her wineglass, tracing invisible circles with her fingertip. That's a longer story than I ever wanted to tell in a restaurant, she said with a small, unsteady laugh. I've got time, Ethan said gently. Olivia exhaled, the kind of breath people take before confessing something they've rehearsed but never spoken aloud. My father lost everything, she began. He made some bad investments. Overnight, we went from comfort to chaos, lawsuits, debts, calls from people we used to call friends. Then he got sick. My mother panicked. We left the country before the papers even reported it. Ethan frowned, trying to piece together the timeline. You couldn't call? Not even a letter. She took my phone, Olivia said quietly. She said I needed to focus on survival, not sentiment. She thought you'd hold me back from starting over. Her voice broke slightly at the last words. And maybe I let her convince me. Ethan looked down, jaw tight. For years, he'd built a version of her departure that made sense. Betrayal was simpler than uncertainty, anger easier than grief. Hearing the truth disarmed him. You could have trusted me, he said finally, but there was no accusation in his tone, only exhaustion. I was 17, she said. I didn't even trust myself. The candlelight trembled between them. For a moment, neither spoke. Olivia's eyes glistened, but she blinked the tears back with quiet determination. I thought you hated me, she whispered. When I saw your messages go unanswered, when months turned into years, I thought it was better not to reopen it. Ethan shook his head slowly. I never hated you, he said, the words deliberate, measured. I just missed you. Every day for longer than I'll admit. A silence followed, tender but raw. Olivia's hand shifted across the table, fingers stopping just short of his. I missed you too, she said, and this time, her voice didn't hide behind composure. Every single day. He looked at her, really looked. The polish, the wealth, the calm authority she carried, it was armor. Beneath it was the same girl who used to leave notes in his locker written on notebook paper, scented with vanilla lotion, who used to promise forever like it was something simple and guaranteed. The waiter returned to clear the plates, sensing the fragile gravity in the air, moving quietly so as not to disturb the moment. When he left, Ethan leaned back and let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. I used to replay that night in my head, he said. The last time I saw you under that oak tree. I thought maybe I'd said something wrong, or you'd found someone else. Olivia's lips trembled into a sad smile. I replayed it too. I kept thinking about your face when I promised I'd see you the next day. I wanted to keep that promise. Their eyes met, and for the first time that evening, there was no distance. Only the heavy ache of years lost and the quiet recognition that neither of them had truly moved on. I guess life had other plans, he said. Maybe, she whispered. But it doesn't mean it has to end the same way. The music from the restaurant speakers shifted to something slow, piano, and strings barely audible. Olivia reached for her glass again, her hand trembling just slightly. Ethan watched her, not out of pity but out of something gentler, understanding, maybe forgiveness. She smiled faintly, tears shining in the dim light. I used to believe success would make the past hurt less. But sometimes I'd trade every boardroom in the world for one of those afternoons under the oak tree. Ethan's throat tightened. Funny, he said. That's the same tree where I learned that forever isn't as long as we think. Olivia didn't argue. She just looked at him. The woman she had become layered over the girl she used to be. And for the first time, the years between them didn't feel like a wall. They felt like a bridge. For a long while after the truth came out, neither of them spoke. The restaurant around them hummed with the low rhythm of clinking glasses and murmured laughter, but it all felt far away, muffled by the weight of memory sitting between them. Then Olivia's lips curved into a faint smile, hesitant, almost fragile, and she said, "Do you remember that summer fair we went to before graduation?" Ethan laughed softly, more through his nose than his throat. "How could I forget? You spent 20 minutes convincing me to go on the Ferris wheel, then closed your eyes the entire ride." "I wasn't scared of heights," she protested lightly. "I was terrified of what would happen if I opened them and you weren't beside me." Her words caught him off guard. For a moment, he didn't know whether to laugh or let the ache rise. "You were always dramatic," he said, voice gentle. "I was honest," she countered, her smile growing. And for the first time that night, he saw the Olivia he remembered, the girl who lived entirely in the moment, who'd talk about dreams as if they were already facts. They kept talking about the small things, the harmless things, how she once got her bike stuck in the mud by the river, and he spent an hour pulling it out, how they used to sit under that oak tree with a cheap radio and listen to songs that now played only on nostalgia stations. The years seemed to peel back, layer by layer, revealing two people who had once believed love could survive anything. The candle had burned low by the time the waiter brought the check. Olivia's phone lit up again, a reminder, probably, a meeting waiting somewhere. She silenced it with an apologetic glance. "Duty calls," she said softly. "It always does." Ethan nodded. "That's okay. I should get back to Noah anyway. He'll be asleep, but you know." "Yeah," she said, her eyes softening. "I know." They both stood. She hesitated, looking around the table as though reluctant to leave the space where the past had briefly come alive again. "It was really good to see you, Ethan," she said. He smiled faintly. "Yeah, you too, Olivia. It's strange how easy it is to talk to you after all this time." "It shouldn't be strange," she replied. "Some things don't wear out, even if we pretend they do." She picked up her clutch, the glint of her diamond bracelet catching the light as she turned to leave. He reached for his wallet to pay, but as he pulled it open, something small slipped out, a folded piece of paper, its edges worn soft from years of being handled. Olivia noticed it instantly. "What's that?" "Oh, just something my son made," he said, but she was already leaning closer, curiosity in her eyes. She reached for the paper carefully, as if afraid it might crumble. When she unfolded it, her breath hitched. It was a child's drawing, a stick figure family, a man, a woman, and a small boy holding hands under a big green tree. Above them, scribbled in blue crayon, were the words me, Daddy, and Mommy in heaven. Olivia looked up, her voice barely a whisper. "Ethan, your wife?" He nodded slowly. "Emily. 5 years ago. Car accident." She covered her mouth, eyes glistening. "I'm so sorry. I didn't know." He nodded again, quietly. "No reason you would. Noah drew that last week. He keeps asking if heaven has trees like the one we used to sit under." Olivia stared at the drawing for a long moment, her composure slipping completely now. "He must miss her." "He does," Ethan said. "But he's tougher than me. Kids always are." She carefully folded the paper back and handed it to him. "He's lucky to have you." He shrugged, trying for modesty, though his throat was tight. "We get by. I fix cars, he builds Lego castles. It's not much, but it's home." Olivia hesitated, then spoke so softly he almost didn't hear it. "Can I meet him?" Ethan blinked. "You want to meet Noah?" She nodded, her voice steadier now. "Please. I'd love to." He wasn't sure what surprised him more, the request itself or the sincerity in her tone. "He's shy around new people," Ethan said carefully. "Then I'll be patient," she replied, and there was something in her eyes that told him this wasn't charity or pity. It was longing, the quiet kind that comes when someone remembers what it's like to care for something pure. Okay, Ethan said finally. Tomorrow? Afternoon's usually best. Her face lit up with a quiet, grateful smile. Tomorrow it is. She reached out as if to shake his hand, but ended up resting her fingers briefly on his arm instead. A gesture both familiar and hesitant, like testing the temperature of a memory before stepping in. Then she turned toward the door, her heels clicking softly across the marble floor. He watched her go, the sound fading until all that remained was the faint scent of her perfume, and the echo of something he hadn't felt in years: hope. The next afternoon, Ethan found himself pacing his small living room, running a hand through his hair for the 5th time in as many minutes. The apartment looked tidy enough. He'd vacuumed twice, wiped the counters, even straightened Noah's collection of toy cars lined neatly on the shelf. Still, everything felt smaller than usual. The walls seemed to lean inward, the furniture suddenly too humble, the space too ordinary for a woman like Olivia Bennett. Noah sat cross-legged on the carpet, crayons scattered around him like a tiny artist's arsenal. "Is she nice, Daddy?" he asked without looking up, focused on coloring the roof of a stick-figure house. Ethan smiled faintly. "Yeah, bud. She's very nice. Does she like cars?" "I don't know," he said, "but I bet she'll like yours." At that, Noah grinned, revealing the gap from his missing front tooth. "Then I'll show her my race car drawing first." A soft knock interrupted them. Ethan's heart skipped, once, then again. He opened the door to find Olivia standing there, sunlight catching the edge of her hair, softening her polished composure. She wasn't dressed for a boardroom today, just jeans, a light sweater, and a faint nervousness that looked almost humanizing. "Hi," she said with a small wave. "I hope I'm not too early." "Right on time," Ethan replied, stepping aside. "Come in." She took in the space quietly, her eyes moving across the walls where Noah's drawings hung like framed trophies, crooked but proud. "It's warm here," she said softly, not meaning the temperature. "Noah," Ethan called gently. "Come say hi." The boy peeked around the corner, half hiding behind the couch, his eyes wide with curiosity. Olivia crouched down instantly, meeting him at eye level. "Hey there," she said, smiling. "You must be Noah." He nodded slowly. "Your daddy's friend?" "I'm trying to be," she said, "but only if you'll let me." Something about her tone, calm, not forced, made him step out. He held up a piece of paper like an offering. "I drew this today." Olivia took it carefully, as if it were made of glass. "Wow," she whispered. "That's amazing. Is this your car?" "Yup. A super racer. Daddy helps me build them sometimes." "Well, he's always been good at fixing things," she said, glancing up at Ethan with a small, knowing smile. Ethan felt his throat tighten. It was such a simple exchange, but watching her with Noah felt like seeing two parts of his world he never imagined colliding. And somehow they fit. "Would you like something to drink?" he asked, mostly to give his hands something to do. "Water's perfect," she said. While he poured it, Noah was already chattering, showing her his toy cars, his crayons, his art wall. Olivia listened like each story mattered, her laughter genuine and unhurried. When Ethan returned, she was sitting cross-legged on the old carpet, holding a crayon and helping Noah color within the lines of a castle. "You missed a tower," Noah said seriously. "Oh no," she gasped playfully. "Guess I'll need an expert to help me fix it." He giggled, grabbing the red crayon from her hand and filling in the gap. "There. Perfect." Ethan leaned against the kitchen counter, arms crossed, quietly watching. The woman who had once belonged to another world, polished, distant, unreachable, was sitting on his living room floor, her hair slightly messy from leaning over a child's drawing. She didn't look like a billionaire anymore. She looked like someone who'd finally remembered what joy felt like. When she noticed him watching, she smiled up at him. "He's incredible." "Yeah," Ethan said softly. "He is." An hour passed without them realizing. Noah's energy faded, and he curled up on the couch with his stuffed dinosaur. Olivia stood, brushing invisible dust from her jeans. "Thank you for letting me come," she said quietly. "Thanks for coming," Ethan replied. "You didn't have to." "Maybe not," she said, glancing toward the sleeping boy. "But I wanted to." She paused, then added, "You once fixed my broken bike, remember? Maybe now it's my turn to fix something for you." He shook his head, half smiling. "You don't owe me anything, Olivia." She looked at him for a long moment, eyes bright, but unreadable. Maybe not. But maybe I owe myself the chance to make up for what I lost. Before he could answer, she stepped forward and lightly touched his hand, not as a promise, not even as a flirtation, but as a quiet bridge built over old regrets. Tell Noah I'll bring him some new crayons next time. Next time, Ethan repeated. Her smile widened just a little. If I'm invited. He nodded, unable to hide the warmth spreading through him. You are. She turned toward the door, her perfume mingling with the faint scent of crayons and home-cooked food. And as she left, Ethan looked around the room, the small apartment, the toys, the sleeping child, and felt something new blooming inside the stillness. It wasn't quite love, not yet, but it was hope, real and steady, and that was more than enough for now. Weeks slipped by quietly, marked not by grand gestures, but by the kind of ordinary moments that begin to feel extraordinary once you realize how much you missed them. Olivia started visiting often, never announced with the formality of appointments or schedules, just simple messages like, "Are you two home? Or can I drop something by?" At first, Ethan thought it was politeness, maybe guilt, the soft persistence of someone trying to even an invisible score. But the more she came, the more it felt different. She stopped bringing expensive gifts after the first few visits. The tailored boxes of artisan chocolate and sleek toys gave way to home-cooked meals she'd made herself. Simple, slightly imperfect, but warm. "I forgot how to cook," she'd laugh, holding a casserole dish like a fragile experiment. Turns out you can't Google heart into a recipe. Noah loved her visits. He'd wait by the window when she was late, sometimes sketching pictures for her. Olivia flying a jet, Olivia fixing cars, Olivia with a crown. She framed one of them, calling it her favorite award, and hung it in her office. Ethan watched it all unfold with a kind of cautious awe. He wasn't naive enough to believe that time could erase the distance between their lives. She belonged to penthouses and boardrooms, and he belonged to the steady rhythm of the workshop and the quiet rituals of fatherhood. But somehow, between those two worlds, a middle ground began to grow. Sometimes she'd join them for dinner, sitting cross-legged at the low kitchen table, listening to Noah's endless stories about school. Other times she'd show up unannounced on Saturdays, hair tied back, holding 2 cups of coffee and a small paper bag. "Thought the mechanic might need breakfast," she'd say. He'd tease her about being allergic to grease, and she'd roll her eyes, reminding him that she once held the record for dirtiest hands after helping him rebuild his first engine at 16. One evening, while Noah was asleep, they sat on the small balcony overlooking the parking lot. The air smelled faintly of rain and motor oil. Olivia leaned against the railing, her hair catching the streetlight. "Do you ever think about how different everything could have been?" she asked softly. "Every day," Ethan admitted. "But if it were different, I wouldn't have Noah. And I can't imagine the world without him." She nodded slowly. "You're right." Then, after a pause, "Still, sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd fought harder to find you." He looked at her, the weight of her words landing with quiet gravity. "You're here now? Maybe that's what matters." Olivia smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. "You always make it sound simple." "It's not," he said, "but maybe simple's the only way it works." They fell into a comfortable silence, broken only by the distant hum of traffic. She took a deep breath. "Do you know what's strange? For years, I thought success would feel like this, calm, safe, complete. But it never did. I kept building higher and higher, waiting to feel something that never came." Ethan turned toward her. "And now I feel it," she said. "Here, in this tiny apartment that smells like crayons and coffee." He smiled faintly, unsure what to say, unwilling to disturb the truth in her voice. Over time, she became part of their routine. On Sundays, she'd join them at the park. On rainy evenings, she'd bring soup and stay until Noah fell asleep, telling him stories about faraway places she'd seen. Sometimes she and Ethan would talk quietly afterward, about everything and nothing. The cost of memory, the weight of survival, the strange comfort of starting over without erasing what came before. One night, after she left, Ethan noticed something small sitting on the kitchen counter, her scarf, a soft gray one she always wore. He picked it up, holding it for a moment, feeling its warmth still trapped in the fabric. It smelled faintly of her perfume, that subtle mix of jasmine and something he couldn't name. He didn't call to return it. Instead, he folded it neatly and left it on the back of the chair where she always sat. Somehow, He knew she'd notice when she came back. Because she would. She always did now. And with each visit, each shared laugh, each moment spent watching her and Noah together, Ethan began to feel something unspoken settle quietly inside him. Not the sharp rush of old love reborn, but the steady rhythm of something deeper, steadier, and real. He didn't need to name it yet. It was enough just to feel it growing. The day began the way so many of their recent days did, quietly, almost shyly, with sunlight slipping through the blinds and the faint sound of Noah humming to himself as he drew at the kitchen table. Olivia had stopped calling before she came. By now, she knew the code to the downstairs door, knew where the extra mugs were kept, knew how to fit into their small world without disturbing it. When Ethan opened the door that evening and saw her holding a small box of cupcakes, he just smiled. "Special occasion?" he asked. "No," she said, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "Just Friday." Noah cheered from the couch, already reaching for one. "Chocolate. Triple chocolate," she said, kneeling to his level. "You've earned it, little man. Your dad says you got all your spelling words right." Ethan grinned. "She has spies at school now." "I have sources," Olivia teased, taking a seat at the table. They ate together as the light softened outside, the apartment filling with the easy rhythm of small talk and laughter. It was nothing extraordinary, and that was what made it so beautiful. No expensive dinners, no grand gestures. Just the sound of forks against plates, a boy telling stories with too much excitement, and two adults who had finally stopped trying to rewrite the past. After Noah went to bed, Olivia lingered by the window, watching the orange streetlights blink on one by one. "He's incredible," she said quietly. "You did that, Ethan." He shook his head. "We did that. Emily too. She's still part of him." Olivia nodded, eyes glimmering. "You talk about her like she's still here." "In a way, she is," he said. "Grief doesn't end. It just changes shape." She turned toward him, her expression thoughtful. "Do you ever feel guilty for being happy again?" He hesitated. "Sometimes. But then I remember she'd want me to be." The room went still for a moment. Then Olivia exhaled, long and quiet, as though she'd been holding her breath for years. "I used to think I had everything," she said finally. "The houses, the company, the power. I'd sit in meetings surrounded by people and feel completely alone. But tonight," she paused, searching for words. "Tonight, for the first time in a long time, I feel rich again." Ethan looked at her, really looked, not at the billionaire, not at the woman who once left without goodbye, but at the person who had found her way back to kindness, to laughter, to home. He stepped closer, his voice steady. "You know, you said once that the world felt smaller when you closed your eyes on the Ferris wheel. Maybe that's what love is. When the world finally feels small enough to fit in your hands again." She smiled softly. "And safe enough to keep there." Outside, the night hummed. Distant traffic, a siren somewhere far away, the rustle of wind through the trees. Inside, the silence between them was no longer awkward. It was full, the kind that exists only between people who've already said everything that matters. Ethan reached for her hand, not as an invitation, but as a promise made wordlessly. She took it, her fingers warm, her thumb brushing the small scar on his knuckle from an old engine mishap. "You still fix things," she murmured. He chuckled quietly. "Some things are worth fixing." In the next room, Noah stirred in his sleep and called softly for his dad. Ethan started to move, but Olivia squeezed his hand gently. "I'll get him," she whispered. He watched her disappear down the hallway, her shadow gliding past the nightlight's glow. Moments later, he heard her soft voice soothing the boy. A few quiet words, a lullaby tone he hadn't heard since Emily. When she returned, she smiled. "He's fine. Just dreaming." Ethan felt a quiet peace settle over him, the kind that doesn't demand attention but simply fills the air. As they stood there, shoulder to shoulder, watching the lights of the city blink through the window, he realized that sometimes love doesn't arrive with fireworks or declarations. Sometimes it returns quietly, walking through the same door it once left, asking nothing but a chance to stay. And this time, he wasn't going to let it go.